We have a couple of recommendations this morning. One is from our Civil Service Board, a recommendation from HR and Civil Service Director Mark Farrington to reappoint Dr. Joe Perez to a second 3-year term beginning October 10th, 2023 and ending October 9th, 2026. And would we like to approve these together? Yes. We also have two for the CRA Advisory Board, a recommendation from CRA Manager Valerie Farrell to appoint Ronald Roberts as a Midtown member to a 3-year term beginning August 7th, 2023 and ending October 16th, 2026. And we also have a recommendation to appoint Jason Ellis as a downtown member to a 3-year term beginning July 17th, 2023 and ending October 16th, 2026.
Second.
Move for approval in a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. So we also are looking for an Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, 3 members, one who is an employer within the jurisdiction, one who's engaged in the residential home industry, and one citizen who resides in the city limits. Also on the Civil Service Board, we're looking for 1 member. They must be over the age of 21, a registered voter, and live inside the Lakeland Electric Service Territory. And also on the Community Redevelopment Area Advisory Board, we need 2 members, one who owns property or a business in the Dixieland CRA District and one in the Midtown CRA District. All exciting opportunities, and we hope that citizens will go to our website and fill out an application. Is there any other business? Meeting adjourned.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Madden. And in 2 minutes, we'll begin our agenda study, or unless we can go forward. I always forget this. Give it 2 minutes. But I want to wait 2 minutes, just so you can rest, take a little break. That was grueling.
Okay, so yesterday with your trunk? With a big box?
And we'll begin our agenda study, and thank you all for being here. When you take a look at the agenda, you'll find that our presentation originally is going to be the retirement literacy with Sherry Watson, which is an important topic to make sure our employees understand, and our citizens in terms of what's happening. And then we'll have proclamations. We have 3: the ADA anniversary, the 33rd anniversary, which is almost hard to believe for those of us who remember when that passed, and then Buffalo Soldiers Day, and then Parks and Recreation Month. And so We will discuss the municipal boards in committee and then do approval of minutes, which would be the utility committee meeting as well as the item on 6B1, which is the purchase order with Killebrew for wastewater sewer force main adjustments. Any problem with leaving that item 6B1 on, and do we need any further explanation on it?
So,
Alex?
see over there.
Sorry, good morning. This is a proposal for a purchase order for the adjustment of 2 sewer mains, sewer force mains. It would be up on Chestnut Road between New Tampa Highway and Butler Drive. And Polk County Roads and Drainage is already going to be doing work over there sometime in the fall, apparently. The water utilities is engaged with Killebrew, which has an active contract with Polk County Roads and Drainage already, and so we're piggybacking on their contract to use them. They're local and have had proven history with us of quality work, and so it's recommended that the way it came out would be an attached quote, which is attached to the agenda item, for a total not to exceed price of $69,306, which was substantially less than the city water utility engineer's estimate of $80,000. It's recommended the City Commission approve the expenditure and authorize the appropriate city officials to execute the purchase order. Robbie Kniss is here from Water Utilities as well, if you have any questions.
Are there any questions from any commissioners on this? Any problem with leaving it on the consent? It's just that it's over that $50,000 mark, so that's why we got to get that done. All right, thank you very much. We'll leave that on consent. So we have public hearings, 3B1.
Morning.
Morning.
This is a resolution that adopts a master agreement with FDOT, contractors to perform work that are related to city-owned utilities that are either in FDOT's right-of-way or easement or adjacent thereto. And I think if you remember, back in June, we had a similar project for the State Road 33 widening and I-4 interchange where we had a master agreement and we had a resolution that adopted that. So this would basically apply to establish a master agreement. So when we have projects like that, we already have the master agreement with the terms and conditions set forth. And then as we have projects that would come forward, they would be subject to have change orders that would be approved by the City Commission, which streamlines the process somewhat as well. And through the process of doing this, Robbie Kniss discovered that the city actually had a master agreement that was adopted pursuant to a resolution back in 1972 by the City Commission. So this resolution seeks to obviously replace that and have this new master agreement in place as well. So there's no dollar amounts associated with this at all. It's just the master agreement being put in place.
Any downsides from your standpoint to doing this at all?
No, I mean, and certainly we only need to utilize it when we want to or when we need to. So, and any projects that we have that would fall under this, that we'd want to utilize this for, would have to be approved by the City Commission, so.
Questions by commissioners? Yes, Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Mayor. Ramona, are there any differences between this agreement and what we've already approved for the State Road 33 project?
No, actually, the master agreement is it's identical.
Okay.
It's same terms and conditions. Again, that was specific to that particular project, and rather than having to do a separate master agreement, sometimes it takes a little bit of time with FDOT if we want to make changes to the agreement. But this is the form agreement that we had negotiated before and that we have in place.
Okay, thank you.
So a couple of important things I think to note are one, if we have an easement interest, DOT is still going to pay us to relocate our facilities. So if we have a property interest, they can't just ignore that. And two, we can look at this on a project by project basis. If we have a really sensitive piece of equipment or facility and we're not comfortable with DOT's contractor, we can choose to do it ourselves. So.
Those are two good points. Anything else? Any other questions? All right, thank you. So we'll go on then to C1.
C1 is the second public hearing on the one-year action plan for CDBG and home funds. You heard Mike Smith give a presentation on that about a month ago, and this is the last required hearing before we forward that to HUD.
Okay, so that's no problem with anyone? All right. And then we go on to 5A, City Manager.
Good morning. I have two items. The first item is regarding approval of a request to negotiate an agreement for professional engineering and environmental consulting services. And this is for the Lake Bonnet Drainage Basin Flood Hazard and Debris Mitigation Project. So again, you know, this is much of Bonnet Springs Park, and the grant that we had is related to this. The city did go through a request for qualifications process, seeking qualified firms to provide professional engineering and environmental consulting services for this project. Four firms responded. We did have a selection committee that convened to evaluate the firms based upon a set of specified criteria. And now included in this project would be a negotiated agreement that includes a set of tasks that has been identified. The initial term of the agreement would be for 6 years with up to 2 additional 1-year extensions. As I referenced a moment ago, the project is federally funded through the State of Florida Department of Economic Opportunities Community Development Block Grant Mitigation Program. That was a subrecipient agreement from back in October. And so staff is recommending that we begin negotiations for these services, and that would be with the first-ranked firm, which is AECOM Technical Services, and then should that negotiation fail, we would begin negotiations with the others ranked in the order below the first-ranked. And so that is the request, is that the commission approve negotiating with AECOM and, if necessary, the other firms.
I had only one question on this. Well, in the paragraph on the second page, excuse me, bottom paragraph, I was curious why it said the city will negotiate with the next highest ranked geosyntech consultants if negotiations fail with the first ranked firm instead of just the flip. I mean, do we typically, is it stated that way typically?
Well, that's just pretty much straight out of this Consultants Competitive Negotiation Act, CCNA.
Okay.
That you have to attempt to, you rank them by qualifications first, and then try to negotiate price. If you can't, then you move down the list in ranked order.
It was just the way that it was the flip of the order, but that's okay. I mean, it makes the same point. Just wondered if the language is like that typically. This is also really our first step, is it not, in trying to move forward on this project in terms of getting some action? Hasn't there been some concern?
Oh, I mean, there's been an awful lot of work to get us to this point. I mean, including
Yes.
the grant and the like, but this would actually bring in the engineering firm that would, you know, would be the consultants on all of the work that now needs to be done and is identified to be done through the process.
Okay. Comments or questions? Yes, Commissioner Madden.
I wondered if Mayor Pro Tem would like to say anything from the Bonnet Springs Board perspective.
I mean, everybody's ready. I think our staff, our team here at the city has done Herculean efforts in this and working with DEO and trying to get this moved forward. It's been, we're almost at 2-year mark of getting the approval for this, and so it's, you know, glacial speed of government. But we're moving forward, and we're excited to actually have this underway, so I think this is a great step. AECOM had worked on this in the beginning, so that's great that they came in with the most competitive bid, and I think everyone will be excited to see this moving forward. So we're glad, but thank you for bringing that up.
Right. Item B.
Question.
Oh,
You have another
yes,
question?
yes. Commissioner
Is this,
Simmons.
is this all funded by the grant?
Yes.
Okay.
And this is the 43.9 million grant that was provided, which Lakeland was the largest single recipient of that $125 million that was granted from the federal government to the state of Florida for purposes of this type of mitigation. 5B.
Okay, the next item is a task authorization, this time, Mr. Mayor, with Geosyntech Consultants, and this is for the Lake Mirror sediment treatment study. Lake Mirror is one of the priority lakes within the city of Lakeland, which has a current regulatory mandate requiring reductions of nutrients. FDEP has placed Lake Mirror on the verified impaired waters list. This would be a 2-phase sediment treatment study. As you've seen in others that we have worked on similarly in the past, major major elements of the sediment treatment study have been specified. The city will use the results of the sediment treatment study in planning and permitting Lake Mirror sediment treatment and lake restoration projects. Geosyntec Consultants is an engineering firm that the city has a continuing services contract with for lakes and watershed management services. Funding for the project in the not-to-exceed amount of $245,677.70 is provided in the fiscal year 23 Stormwater Capital Improvement Plan. And so staff would recommend that the City Commission authorize city officials to execute the task authorization with Geosyntec Consultant for the study as presented.
Commissioner Reed.
Thank you. Sean, if in the event that we have this study and it proves that we need to do it, which we know it needs to be done, do we have the funds to mitigate this lake at this point?
Heath, I'll ask Heath Frederick, our Public Works Director.
Good morning. Yes, sir, we do. This is a part of our capital improvement plan. So this is the first phase of that project, but we do have funds set aside to address every one of our lakes that are on the impaired lake list.
Do you have the money to do the study? Do we have the money to do?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because I was wondering, why do a study if we don't have the money to do it with?
Yes, sir, it helps us plan. You know, we know what funds we have to put toward the project, so it helps us plan for those projects in the future by knowing what type of treatment we'll need. But we do have the funds available.
Thank you.
Heath, let me just ask, are the funds specific to this particular project, or we just have funds that are available as we go down the list of the lakes that we're going to do the study and then?
We just have funds available.
Yeah.
Right, so when we find out exactly what we need to do there, then we'll allocate funds to the specific project, but we have a general fund that addresses all of our lakes.
I know we have to do Lake Hunter also. Is that a fair statement as well?
Yes, sir.
We have money to do that one too, you think?
We will plan, yes, sir, to do that in the future. All right.
Mr. Simmons.
Question, what does impaired lakes mean?
It means they have heavy levels of nutrients within the lakes. There's different reasons that can cause that. There can be a runoff that causes the lake to be impaired. There could be nutrients on the bottom that cause the lake to be impaired. So anything that it doesn't meet a certain quality standard.
Who designates that, the state?
The state, yes, sir.
Okay.
DEP, Department of Environmental Protection.
And they come around and they check the lakes once a year, is that right?
They check them on, I'm not sure what the, I'll let Jessica answer that question for you. She's our.
Good morning, I'm Jessica Schilling. We actually, our team at Lakes and Stormwater monitors the lakes quarterly, each lake in the city of Lakeland. Well, our staff in Polk County, but Lake Mirror in particular, the city of Lakeland
So
samples.
once you all monitor the lakes, then you report to the state the
Yeah, we're
level
required
of
to report.
nutrients and
Yes.
any other? Okay, great.
Yes, we're required to report our analysis to the state.
Okay, great. Thank you. And when you do that once a year,
Quarterly.
Quarterly.
quarterly? Okay, thank you.
Seems to be a lot of money to me, just as a study. And with no disrespect, and reading through the bullet points of getting that, is this a continuing vendor contract? And would there be a time on the next lake that maybe we could do some competitive bids? And I'm out of my lane in terms of knowing what value and costs would be, but it just seems like a lot of money for a study.
So we have, I mean, obviously, we can benchmark, with others that we've had performed, and then kind of, it's really back to the glacial pace that government moves. If we go through an entire, RFP or RFQ process, we're just going to slow the process down. But certainly, though, I mean, we just have available to us the ability to use the CC&A process to help expedite. And again, we have experience with the consultant, with these engineers, and we can also benchmark what, other similar studies have cost.
If it isn't out of round, that's fine. It's just, we're analyzing water, we're sending it to labs, and we're writing reports. It's $245,000. And so just on a scope gut basis, if it's copacetic with things that you see done historically and that we have done in the past, then it has integrations in it and complexities that I probably don't appreciate or understand. But if it's that we have an opportunity to try and trim some of the costs out of a future quote. I wouldn't mess with this one at all. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just talking about, it seems expensive, that's all. Just weighing in a voice. Commissioner Madden.
Thank you, Mayor. So I also think that to that point, it'd be good if you could help explain, because I did see here that you'd have a crane and boat access and, you know what I mean, maybe it's more intensive than we can think when we see water sampling. So maybe on Monday especially, you know, just for folks who think, you know, like the mayor, that's a lot of money for water sampling, you could kind of say you have to, I guess, take a crane into the middle of the lake to get the muck depth and all of the things, so that it'll give us a little better idea of the scope of the project.
We'll do that, and hopefully Lori will be back on Monday, so
Okay.
we'll be able to
It's all
fix that.
And listen, appreciate the work, love our lakes. You guys do a stellar job. You have to coordinate with the county, and we understand that. Just trying to be fiduciarily responsible.
These are continuing contracts, and we negotiate the price during the process when we go through when we select our firms. So it's based on those prices that they submit to the city. But yes, we'll do that. We'll try to go into further explanation.
And just for, you know, for the public and related to those comments, I mean, let me just state that staff has done that. I mean, and you see it here, that as to your point, the public doesn't necessarily see this when we're on, you know, TV or streaming. You know, usually at agenda study, I'm just trying to summarize the item, and then usually at the commission meeting, we'll go into a little more detail. So staff has provided that, and then we'll present that on Monday. But that's really kind of on me for the way that I summarized it, even though staff has provided it. So we'll make sure to do that Monday.
Yeah, that was, because when I was reading it, that was kind of, I was like, muck depth, that's a big part of this, like discovering the muck depth determines the treatment and, you know, so, I mean, it is a bigger process than just sampling, you know, going out and scooping up water, but certainly I think.
Want to understand the actual process a little bit better.
Yeah, just like, I mean, it mentions a crane and a boat and, you know, so just those things
Good
make you
comment.
think, okay, this is more intensive than just scooping up water and sampling to see the nutrient level.
Not like the pool water, you're sampling with a little
Yeah,
test
like you do
tube,
my
right?
pH
Yeah, I'll do it for half that if I use my test kit for pool water.
Go with a shovel, right?
Right, so that I think will be helpful.
Okay, we will do that.
Thank you,
Thanks.
and with great respect, so no undermining at all. And that brings us to 6A1.
All right, 6A1 is an ordinance approving the annexation of two different parcels into the boundaries of the Lakeland Area Mass Transit District, and that will subject those two properties to the tax imposed by LAMTAD. Both property owners did consent to that annexation, and Chuck Barnby has pulled up the maps to show the two properties involved.
Thanks, Palmer. And the two properties that are in question total about 20 acres in total area. One is at the southwest corner of Yates Road and West Pipkin Road and is scheduled to become a apartment complex. The other one just recently was assigned PUD zoning through the Planning and Zoning Board and the City Commission. And so that's about 2.5 acres on West Pipkin Road, just west of Waring Road. And so both properties were approved by the Lakeland Area Mass Transit District Board of Directors. And so this is the ratification of those lands. And then if approved at the second hearing, then it would be submitted back to LAMTED and then to the property appraiser to be added to the tax rolls.
Any questions? Commissioner Reed?
Chuck, on the one west of Waring Road? I guess that's
The 2.5 acres.
2.5 acres.
the bigger site,
Oh, the bigger site, that's just west of Yates Road.
Yates Road.
Yates Road.
Okay.
Right one is the one.
And then the one up next to the airport area, did we just do some rezoning in that area recently, just next door to it?
That's correct. That property was assigned plan unit development zoning for, I think it was around 19,600 square feet of warehouse and office space. We don't have a site plan we do have a site plan for that project yet. So it is moving forward, and so this is one of the conditions of the PUD for them to continue to move forward through the site development process. It's probably more smaller scale business park type, certainly not cross dock, but it would look from the street more like a traditional office building.
Other questions? Yes, Commissioner Music.
On the Yates Road property, the little cutout that's not included in that I know that we've already approved some other things that's across from, is that already, that's already part of the city? Is that why that's not part of this?
It's within the city, but not part of the mass transit district. And so when we get a site plan or if additional zoning is needed on that property, that will be another condition of them to be able to move forward as well. It's about a little over an acre and it's got a land use designation of convenience center.
That's for us to build congruency into that district for being able to manage employees and transportation.
We do have several more that are in the queue in other parts of the city that'll be coming forward in the coming months. So there's more in the pipeline.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Mike asked an interesting question. That little 1 acre corner, it's in the county now?
It's in the city, just outside of the transit
Okay,
district.
so they're not going to ask for county to do some zoning and want us to annex it in with whatever they have?
This is all, it's been in the city since about 2003 and was part of the overall English Creek annexation that included Town Park Estates.
Other questions? All right. Oh, yes, Commissioner Madden.
Well, I just keep thinking of my Mayor Pro Tem colleague over there, and I feel like we haven't heard a transit update in a while. Is Mr. Phillips on the agenda anytime soon? Are we going to hear anything about?
I mean, we
transit?
certainly can. We don't have a meeting this month. We're actually going through a renovation at the office, so everyone has moved into the boardroom, sort of like we're here. And so we will reconvene in August, but yes, the transit district's doing really well. They're working on their county budget right now. I see Commissioner Lindsay in the background who's going to speak to us about transportation later, so you'll probably hear a little bit more with regard to that. But the transit district is moving along really well, and our team there, we have a new CFO and have had a little bit of transition, but it's going really well. Chuck is a great partner to the Transit Authority in making sure that we have concurrency and that all of our connectivity is working throughout the city limits of Lakeland and beyond and in the county. So, and an interesting part just for the public is it is Citrus Connection. LAMTAD, which is Lakeland Area Mass Transit District that we keep referring to in the acronym, is all of the city of Lakeland, and we have a pretty substantial network that we work within as a metropolitan type area. And then Citrus Connection has come together with LAMTAD, so our board manages the entire county. So it's comprised of Commissioner Simmons, myself, and the mayor, and then also Commissioner Santiago and Commissioner Lindsay from the county. So the county provides the funding for everything outside of Lakeland. Throughout Polk County, which is 2,200 square miles. It's a lot of space to cover. And so that's something that we're continuing looking at and that what we manage as a board. But thank you for asking.
Yeah, and the county's a gargantuan provider in that
Yeah.
whole process. And we typically have a report in the fall, I think, but we're loaded through August already on reports, so it'd have to be September, October.
But I think that would go along with our budget years too. So, and just also as an FYI, there are 3 buckets that we get funded from. So we have Polk County Transit, Lakeland Area Mass Transit, which are ad valorem based, and then we have the Transportation Disadvantage, which comes from the federal government. So it's kind of we have 3 different budget years that we manage with these, and some of the grants are retroactive, so you pay out in the head, and then you have to bill in to the federal government. And I may be saying that wrong, Chuck. I'm gonna look at Chuck, but.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
okay, I'm just
There's a lot
making
of-
sure.
lot of front funding that has to
I don't have
occur.
my transit hat on right now, I have my city hat on right now, so it's hard to vacillate. But it's a great organization, I think we're doing really well. Obviously, public transit is, as we continue to grow and see the growth in the state of Florida, we have people coming in who would really prefer to have more transportation options, and that's something that we'll talk about a little bit later with our workshop. But thank you for asking.
Great. All right, so we are now going to, let's see, you did your
Yeah, we got
First one, I'm sorry.
6B2, I think is what we're on,
C2. No, yeah, C2.
which is a financial advisor services agreement with PFM Financial Advisors. Our current financial advisor who assists with primarily just with all the bond deals that we do, the bond issues that we do, is RBC Capital Markets, and they are getting out of the business of financial advising for municipal clients. So we need to secure the services of a new financial advisor, and we do have a significant bond issue coming up for the Rice project, probably in August or September. So we saw an opportunity, particularly finance, that Seminole County had recently gone through an RFP process in which they selected PFM Financial Advisors. They're one of the largest financial advising firms in the country. And importantly for us, Julie Santa Maria, I know the mayor's familiar with her, She was with RBC Capital, and, she's worked with the city of Lakeland for a number of years on all of our deals. She's now with PFM Financial. So that's definitely a bonus for us to have her and the continuity that would provide. Purchasing and finance both looked at the Seminole County project or RFP and the contract and are both of the opinion that that's a very competitive contract. So they are recommending that we piggyback on that Seminole County contract and enter into a contract with PFM Financial Advisors. Under that contract, it would be a 5-year term, renewable at the city's option for 2 successive 1-year terms. We'd have the ability to terminate the agreement at any time with or without cause. And it's also a non-exclusive agreement so that we could contract with another financial advising firm if we felt that was appropriate. I spoke with Jeff Sturms yesterday. He felt like the rates that are being offered by PFM are either at or below what we have been paying for those services. And an example of just the scale of how this would work, they're paid out of the bond deal. So whatever the size of the bond deal is, they'll get a percentage of that, and that's specified in the contract. So, for example, for a $100 million bond issue, their fee would be $71,000, and that would come out of basically the closing proceeds of the bond issue. So that's recommended for your approval.
That's always funded, therefore.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Questions? Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Mayor. Mike, anything you want to add to that?
No, it was it was surprising when we found out that RBC was getting out of the market, but to Palmer's point, the fact that Julie ended up at PFM is very helpful for us because we do not use them very often, but when we do, we need that depth of experience in the marketplace that they have, and so it's to our advantage this way, and I do like the fact that we're not going to see prices necessarily go up, which is another benefit, so.
Commissioner Reed.
Yeah, I was just wondering if we had a local preference, anyone that does this type of information. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. So our next item is utility A1.
All right, that is is an amendment to the Lakeland Electric rate ordinance that y'all approved a few months ago, and I think we had a presentation on that at the last utility committee meeting where you heard that because of costs going up, that there's a need to adjust the rates for the upcoming fiscal year from 2.25% to 3.5% across the board. So that's what this rate ordinance would do. If nothing changes before the following fiscal year, FY '25, I guess it would be, the rates would go back to the 2.25% rates. Gina Jacoby is here. I think she gave a presentation to the utility committee, but she can also give you a summary this morning if you would like.
I think we're all up to speed on that one, aren't we? Okay, so thank you, Gina, for your availability. And then B2. Oh, I'm sorry.
Or C2 and C3.
Right.
The first item that we have there under the miscellaneous items for utility is an agreement with Pike Electric. This is for electrical distribution construction services for LE's energy delivery operations, and this basically entails the replacement of pole structures and includes the overhead maintenance, under the underground construction and maintenance related to that, lighting installation and maintenance, as well as having this particular contractor on board for emergency restoration services on a 24/7 basis as needed. The city's purchasing department went out for bid in May, and we had 5 responses received from various companies. Pike Electric was selected as the most responsible bidder with the lowest price based on the labor, equipment, and materials in the bid pricing. This would be a 3-year agreement that would be effective upon city commission approval with 2 additional 1-year options of renewal. The first year in the initial term is the pricing will be firm, and thereafter for the remaining initial term as well as any renewal periods, the increase would be subject to up to a 3% per year increase. Pursuant to the agreement, Pike will be providing 2 4-person crews as well as all the necessary equipment and to assist in the replacement of any of these pole structures and work And again, this is in addition to having them under contract in the event of an emergency when we deal with hurricanes or some other issue. The total cost, estimated cost of the work for the initial contract period per year is $2.8 million. That's included in Lakeland Electric's FY23 and FY24 budget.
Questions on this at all? Yes, Commissioner Simmons.
It states here that they're to be used, that the current crews who typically would replace those poles are at capacity.
Right, the internal city employees that would typically do this work, we don't have enough staffing to do that. That's why we would go out, that's why we're seeking to go out and contract with this particular contractor.
So it's more than just hurricane-related
Yeah,
issues?
the hurricane work that's supplemental to this. I mean, the majority of work that they will be doing relates to all of our utility poles, replacement, removal, the lighting services that go along with that. So one component is just the emergency provisions.
So this is the first time we're getting such a crew, outside crew to help with this?
No.
It's not?
We basically we don't have enough staff to do polls or assign it, that this becomes cost-effective to do the supplementary poll removal at the rate that the polls are failing, and we have lots of polls to take out and replace. And so this is the second time I think this commission has approved one of these.
I believe the previous agreement was also with Pike. I think we had contracted with Pike, and the process of having to replace those poles, that there's a certain inspections that go along with the poles, so they're on a replacement schedule where if a pole is damaged, so we need to have those crews in place to be able to do that work.
Commissioner Mann.
Thank you. And it is interesting when you look at the different businesses that are, available to do this work. Is it typically that we go outside Florida because we're hit so much by storms and probably they're all busier than folks outside the state, or?
I'd have to defer, I think, to Scott Bishop if he has some input on that. But I mean, typically I don't believe we have, these are large companies that can perform this work. So I have to ask him to.
These guys all live locally. So the firm's headquarters is out of state, but these crews are within an hour response time of any emergency I have, both from a hurricane perspective
That's good to know.
And a Tuesday night. If a storm gets bad enough, I can call those guys and they have a 1 hour response time. So these are, though the company's not local, these are local individuals that live here and work here.
I'm so glad I asked, because you would just look at the corporate headquarters is what they list in our.
Very large companies in general, and they do a lot of work for a lot of utilities, I think, across the board, across the United States, so that's.
Would typically, do munis not hire their own employees for this, and what's the thought process behind all that?
So it's work ebbs and flows, right? So to have these guys on retainer to actually do additional work, say a developer hits me with like 1,700 home subdivision. That takes a lot of resources for a lot of time, where I can put these guys over here on that thing and continue to support the entirety of the city in the same way. So as the work ebbs and flows, I can pull in, take out crews where I don't need to have on staff if I don't have the workload.
You're only paying for what they do.
That's right.
Correct. The contract just sets forth and establishes the rates and for labor, materials, equipment, so we have that in place when we need it.
And of course, I mean, we're always striking a balance, with headcount, based on, what are kind of those routine, ongoing, reoccurring operational needs versus emergency type conditions or project work that, otherwise, we wouldn't have the need for that level of headcount. So that's always part of the consideration.
Other questions or comments? Thank you very much for that. And so that takes us to C2.
This next agreement is an agreement with Calvert Company LLC for the purchase of non-segregated bus duck runs for the RICE project. This is a purchase of 4 non-segregated bus duct runs. These are basically conductors and joints and insulated supports contained in a metal enclosure that will connect to the generator step-up transformer to the medium switchgear that carries the power between the generators and the switchgear, as well as power between the low voltage side of the service station transformers and the low voltage switchgear. The purchasing department issued a bid back in March of this year. We had 3 responses, contractors that submitted bids. The actual low bidder, if you look at the bid prices, was Crown Electric on the face of the bids. However, once staff evaluated, along with Sargent and Lundy, our consulting engineer, the bids, Crown Electric still actually had some higher pricing with regard to their required structural steel, and their freight was higher. And so that would actually make Calvert the lower price contractor. In addition, there were some concerns contained in Crown's bid regarding the arrangement of equipment and the configuration of that. And upon further discussion between Sargent and Lundy, our consulting engineer, and city staff, it was determined that we would also add some additional required work as part of the initial bid. We also include the required supportive ductwork, freight costs, and field services to provide some guidance during the installation process. Those additional features resulted in an amount of $48,532. All that is scheduled to be design, manufacturing, and shipping included, to be delivered in March of 2024. And if you recall, the City Commission already approved the above-ground contractor, Rayco, a few months ago, and that they will be doing the installation of this as well. The total cost of the work, including the additional features, is $416,011, and that is included in the RICE project budget that's funded through our bond issuance.
When we think of ducts, we typically think of air. These are ducts that run power wiring through them, right?
Pictures.
Oh, good.
I was looking at the black and white, I was like, oh, I would like a picture.
I'm sorry we can't put them up on the.
Yeah, they're saying they're trays that you run wiring through.
And we're purchasing 4 of those for the project.
Right, any questions? Yes, Commissioner Music.
When it says that this was included in the budget for the RICE included, we had that dollar amount set aside, or is there an increase from what we had initially budgeted that's part of that? Because we haven't seen anything come lower.
Yeah, I have to defer to David. I know he is our project guru with the RICE project, and he can probably say what the budgeted amount versus this actual price that came in.
Yeah, unfortunately, to have to say that this did come in a little bit over what we budgeted for our line item, but it is within the budget that I presented to you guys last time, so that's where we're sitting at.
It's within range of what we had talked about before, but it is still higher than.
Higher than the initial budget that we came up with.
Initial, yeah, okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Commissioner Reed.
Thank you. And Ramona, this is actually just what I want to ask for Mike to stick around. I have a question of him before she leaves her position and he leaves or something. That's all I want to ask him.
So we'll stand by. By the way, David, you're looking very fit, sir.
Thank you. I had to have a hip replacement. My surgeon wouldn't do it unless I lost 40 pounds. And so I went down 50. I'm at about 40 now, so.
That's awesome. Great job, sir. You're inspiring to us all. All right, any other questions on the duct runs? All right, then, if you want to ask the question, Commissioner Reed, Mr. Beckham?
Mike, on our last meeting, we had some of those presentations on those solar pods.
Microgrids.
Yeah. I had a friend of mine stop by the office, and they sell about 200 homes a year in Lakeland, 200 homes a month, he was telling me. And I need to know who to get a hold of. I might introduce this to him, so he said they might have interest in that.
Okay. Well, right now, you can still contact, I'm sorry?
We can do that after the meeting.
Oh, all right, okay.
Correct, that would be good. I'm sorry. We'll kind of stay on the agenda. Thank you. Anything else on that? No, and so we will have an audience response time, and then mayors and member of the commission can share, and we'll be adjourned. So we are finished with our agenda study. Short.
One other item, Kelly Coos asked me to bring this up. We're, it's hard to believe, but approaching the election season again, and she needs to nail down some canvassing board meeting dates, so I'll turn this over to Kelly to go over that.
You got the email with the dates, and hopefully you had a chance to look at your calendar. Some of the dates we cannot move around, like November 3rd. That's just a 5-minute meeting. Will you authorize us to start processing all the vote-by-mail ballots that will hopefully have come in? And then you can choose between November 6th or 7th. The 6th would be at 5 p.m., or you could come in at 8 o'clock on the 7th. It again is just a 5-minute meeting for you to authorize us to continue processing any new ballots that came in over the weekend. So I just need a decision between those two dates, mostly of the 4 that are going to be serving on the canvassing board.
The 6th seems like it would be wise to do because we have a commission meeting anyway.
But it's at 5 p.m.
5.
Oh, you're right, I'm
Where
sorry.
is it? It'd be in City Hall. It'd be here.
I can do either.
I can do either of those. We need, how many you need? 4 or 5?
Then what was the other one?
Or the 7th at 8 a.m. So the 6th at 5 or the 7th at 8.
I'm fine. Good for Stephanie?
7th at 8, so you just
7th at 8,
yeah.
do 8.
7th at
On the
8,
7th.
okay. And then your next choice is between, and the reason for this is Veterans Day is November 10th, so the city's closed for a holiday. But that is also normally when you would be certifying the election results, because the election would be on Tuesday, the 7th. So you could do it at 5:30 p.m. on Thursday, the 9th, because voters who may have had to vote by, I'm sorry, the word just escaped me, provisional ballot. If there was a problem at the poll, they had them vote provisional. They have until Thursday to bring their evidence. They have until Thursday at 5 p.m. to bring whatever proof they need to show that their vote should count. So you have to wait until after 5, and I have to go over there and get it and bring it back. So you could do it Thursday at 5 p.m. before the long weekend for those who are on the ballot, or you could have them wait, which I'm fine either way, and do it Monday morning at 8 a.m. and certify the results.
Do Thursday at 5.
So we'll have the youth council till 5.
So,
'Cause as long as we still had 3, we could
Well,
still
we've got
move
3.
forward.
We've got 3, we're good.
we're good.
So Thursday at 5:30?
Yes, ma'am.
For certifying the election
Yes, ma'am.
results? Okay, and one more, I'm sorry to keep bothering
okay.
you. Thursday at 5:30 means that, well, that kind of decides it, because you have to do the manual audit within so many days of certifying the results, so your manual audit will be the 16th at 8:30 in the morning. That's where we get the ballots out, and you team up with a staff member and hand count the results. Y'all have done that
Works.
before.
And that's when?
That will be the
16th.
16th at 8:30. That will take a little bit longer. That's not a 5-minute deal, but it,
Only thing I see is an Aerospace Academy
I
ceremony
think LDD meeting.
that morning. Okay, so, but
need 3.
there's 1, 2, 3, maybe,
16th at 8:30.
between the 2. We're down. We don't need you at this point if you don't want to. Okay.
If you have competition, Commissioner, you wouldn't be eligible. You don't
Oh,
have
yeah, no, you're not
competition yet,
eligible.
but
Right,
you may
right.
not be eligible.
And we changed the charter to allow either the city manager or city attorney to make up that 3rd spot if we have a
It
problem.
may be, I mean, I can talk. At 8, I mean, it may be that I.
Sure, so we're
Then,
covered.
on
We're
election
good.
night, the 4 of you will be in the supervisor's office at 5 p.m.
That sounded like not a question.
It wasn't a question,
Yes.
and you shouldn't make plans
Be there.
for
I'll
that
be
night,
there.
because it'll be busy.
Okay.
Thank you.
It looks good. No conflicts. That's wonderful.
Oh, how lucky is that?
Yes. All right. Any comments by commissioners on anything you'd like to share before we or our
Just,
city manager.
but before that, Mr. Mayor, if I may, just one update, based on the question earlier about, transportation and when we may be hearing, about that. We do have LAMTED already scheduled for an October, presentation before the commission, so we'll have that very soon.
Yes, for the next session, next workshop.
I've got a comment.
Yes,
Mr.
Commissioner
Mayor.
Simmons, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't see.
I've just recently learned that the Northwest District's fire preparation, the fire stations are at capacity. And I understand that the City Commission voted to fund a new Station 8, and we're waiting on the fire truck to come in sometimes next year, early 2024. And so I'm just wondering where we are with that process, and if we can get a temporary station until a permanent station is found and constructed.
So where we are in the process is we do have funds budgeted for the acquisition of property for an eventual Station 8. Staff is working to try to locate property. Chief Riley had done a presentation, and based upon calls for service and response time, that kind of helps identify a specific area where you would want a station. Unfortunately, we've not been able to find any property that we can afford in that particular area. So, we're still continuing to look. If we have to shift a little further north to accomplish that, it doesn't give us the same results that we're looking for in terms of reducing those call times and calls for services, but that's all in process right now and has been. We just have not been able to acquire the property that we need. We're still actively engaged in having conversations with some development in that area, and we're waiting to see what that might produce. But it's ongoing. We just have to be able to find the property to acquire. In terms of a temporary station, I mean, that's additional cost with, I think, the same issue. I don't know in that particular area where we would be able to locate even a temporary station. If we had the ability to do that, we would try to acquire that property. But we can have, and I'm sure we'll be having some more discussions about that coming up, probably as part of the budget cycle and even strategic planning.
Commissioner Music.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll piggyback a little bit on that. When we approve money for the purchase of land, and I know that the, excuse me, I know the team's out there looking, if we don't see something that we can afford, and I mean, do we set ourselves any kind of a time limit to look and say, okay, well, we've looked for X number of months and the purse that we had isn't adequate? How do we approach that coming back? Because I mean, with the residents moving here, it isn't going to get better by itself. So what's our next step if we can't afford what's available?
That becomes part of the budgetary cycle, and whether or not, the commission wants to allocate even more funds toward that project, or, even could potentially remove those funds. I'm not suggesting that here, but I'm just saying, as part of the process, that those decisions can be made as part of the budgetary discussions.
This is also a result of negotiating, and sometimes, you negotiate on things that don't end up closing.
Oh, absolutely. And by the time, I know I've had a few conversations, by the time we looked at a piece that was good, by the time we can get, everything together, it's been purchased. And so I understand. I just want to make sure that obviously we are being diligent, but if we're being diligent in a direction that we just can't afford, we're going to have to figure something out.
Sure. No, and so appreciate the comment for more aggressiveness in a higher market, and the need to balance that between adequate public safety, in the interim, and not letting ourselves be too conservative. It's a balance that we're working through. Yes, Commissioner Madden.
Well, and this, I don't know, it seems like with Parks and Rec, there are wonderful naming opportunities for parks when people want to give land or, contribute a fairer price for things. Does that not follow suit with things like, for police or fire? I mean, I'm just curious, there might be somebody who says, well, if I, I love first responders. I have this piece of land. If you would name this fire station after me, I mean, is that even possible?
We'd probably consider that, wouldn't we?
If there's
Like,
anyone
could
out
we
there
send it
like
out to
that,
the public? There are naming opportunities.
Send them my way.
I know,
There's-
okay. See our
You know,
city manager.
The other thing is just the negotiating process. And so trying to be mindful of that and not inflating the market on ourselves.
That's why there has to be quiet patience to some degree, you know. It's hard. Any other comments on that? Good question. It's a very, very fair question and a need. So it's in process. I guess that's the big picture.
Yeah, I just can't, Jason Willie is the lead on that, along with the chief and the assistant chiefs of at the fire department. You know, Brian Ruiz and I are updated on that. It's active. It's just a matter of being able to find what we need.
Right. You know, we're growing, and certainly we need the infrastructure for the growth we need the infrastructure to accompany the growth, and certainly that a component of that infrastructure would be, you know, a new fire station or a temporary interim one until we get a permanent one set up. So we definitely want to keep public safety as a priority.
Very good comment. Other comments from commissioners? All right, then we are adjourned, and we're starting again at 9:30 for the proposed council.